beyond early warning systems. We have two great districts here to tell their story. We're each going to give a presentation, and we'll open it up to some Q&A and discussion and cooperative learning. Just really to set this up, and as you heard some of Joanna's remarks this morning, is that early warning systems sort of began as a focus on high school graduation. It's sort of interesting to remind ourselves that it's 2007, the modern version was basically in a couple of middle schools in Philadelphia and a couple of high schools in Chicago. And within that now 13-year time span, they've scaled widely, and people have learned to make them even more powerful by extending them to things like college readiness or career readiness, and also going from a few schools in a district doing it, really trying to take a more systematic district-wide approach. And we really took two great early adopter examples of going district-wide and thinking about that, and also extending beyond just high school graduation. So it's going to be a real treat to learn from these folks, and these sets of folks are really doing the work, figuring out the answers, how we build pathways to adult success for all our kids. And in this case, we're really focusing on how do we make sure they get through K-12 schooling really on track and ready to succeed in post-secondary. So without any further ado, we're going to begin with our friends, with Francis from, why don't you tell us where you're from?
Hi, my name is Francis Dumas-Hyde. I'm from the Evansville-Vandenberg School Corporation in Evansville, Indiana. And I'm just glad to be here this morning to share what we are doing here with our early warning system. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about our school corporation. We are the third largest in the state of Indiana, with about 22,000 students in about 40 schools. We are located in the southwestern part of Indiana, just right close to the border of Kentucky, only about 60 miles away from Illinois, so kind of like a tri-state area. Our school version is countywide, so it serves the variety of urban, suburban, all types of schools. We are 57% low income, 60% special ed, and 2.6% ELL, and our special ed and our EL population continue to grow. I have to take a minute to let all of our fancy graphics load. We had such help in doing this. I'm just so excited to watch it work. I wish I knew how to do that. So let me tell you a little about our origins of our early warning system. So in 2009, the Indiana Department of Education sent out these lists of our 8th grade going into 9th grade students to every high school in Indiana. And it had an education graduation index on it. They had a couple of variables or indices on that, factors on that warning system that led to a risk index. But when we looked at that, we thought, hey, we could probably build our own ourselves with variables that are straight from our school information system. We could build models and determine the correct cutoffs and the correct variation of variables in that model. Additionally, we went straight to the literature to see what was out there in terms of at-risk reports, early warning systems early on. And so with that, we went back to 6th grade because initially it was the idea that you catch them early before they even get to high school. So in the Indiana model, it had variables such as age retention, I-step, mobility and attendance. In ours, we went with the ABCs: attendance, behavior, course performance. Additionally, we had age, retention, and mobility. And so we were able to do things like the state's cutoff for attendance was like 90%. And so we went up as far as 90. We saw that our cutoff was really flag students at 93%. And even subsequently with 8th grade, it was as high as 95 that would flag those students that were at risk. So that was really the advantage of building our own and getting those specific cutoffs. So what resulted from that is that we needed a visual that schools could use to that would indicate a student was flagged for being at risk. So we went through our data warehouse decision in, and we created a report where on the left side are all of the factors that go into the risk score, as well as the actual risk score. And then we looked at the bivariates for each of the risk and the risk score to come up with cutoffs based on the extent to which it was a good indices of like whether we're going to graduate, ultimately graduate or not. And so with those, we color coded red, green, or yellow. And in some cases, it's good for schools to see that because the students might not be flagged for the risk score. They might still be yellow or even green, but they might still have at least one indicator that is yellow, so they can still look at those factors that comprise it. Additionally, we had input from schools. We consulted them, and they wanted additional fields like the NWEA assessments across the school year, as well as we have a suspension alternative. So it's something called CARES. They wanted to know whether a student had been in CARES and whether they, the number of days that they attended this. So additionally, the risk score changes daily. I think that was another advantage of putting it into our warehouse and having it attached to our SIS. Okay, so this whole system of creating the models, putting them into the at-risk course is an iterative process. So we created reports, we got input from focus groups, we revise reports, they update daily, we roll them out to school, subsequent input from stakeholders, additional revisions, and so this process continually occurs even now. There are times when we get additional input about can we have some extra fields that look at maybe some suspension information from last year or different assessments. So there's a constant process in which we continue to improve the reports and model. And then our high school started to see all these reports and things that the middle school staff were getting. They wanted their own, but they really wanted it to address credits earned. They said this is the root cause of what's going on in our schools. Is there any way you could build that in? So we went back to scratch building the model, and we substituted course performance with number of credits earned. And we built models from that to create the reports for the high school. So with theirs, it's almost like once they run the reports, they can start to intervene more immediately. And additionally, there's a concern for them with attendance because we have a grad waiver report that we run that counselors look at to see if some of the more at-risk students are on track to graduate based on this waiver. And so the components of this particular report help to look at a lot of what the high school population wanted to view. Okay, so who really looks at these reports? School administrators particularly look at them. They want to do that so that they can create and adjust interventions at the student level, as well as look at those reports across the school level. So anywhere from like one-on-one sessions to overall school improvement planning is what they do with them. Particularly, there was a principal who emailed me immediately at the beginning of the school year and said, can you grab my risk score from last year, because we really use it as a watch list as soon as the students get into our building. So it really lended to validation of what we're doing with the early warning system. Additionally, we have counselors and people who serve in a counseling capacity who use these reports. The interesting thing about this was we had some grounding. Like, we kind of got a tough start with using the reports. We had, focus groups and et cetera. But particularly recently, I was doing a presentation within a specific group and showing them what we were doing with the early warning systems and moving into the high school reports. And a number of counselors were there, and they were saying, like, we have this big counseling initiative via the American School Counseling Association. And so once that was exposed to them, it really took off. So we built reports that helped them, the counselors, as well as other people that served in that support functions, such as social workers, school psychs, socio-emotional learning specialists. That is a tongue twister. I have the guy from the previous session working on that. And so they use those to identify their tier 2 students as well, particularly with the advent of the high school report. A lot of counselors are working with parents to think about what to do with their students at home, and even with students, showing them what their risk scores are. And one counselor I was working with just a couple of weeks before the presentation, she was just really giving me such great reviews about the early warning system report. And she was saying how when she shares those things with students, they just come running to her with the report, or they come running to her saying, "Are you getting ready to run the report? I want to check my risk score again. How well am I doing?" So it has really taken off with the advent of just some exposure in the new counseling initiative that we have going on in our corporation. Okay, at this point, I'm going to transition to Katie Minahan, who will branch off into where else we're going with our reports.
Great. So everybody in education knows the value of the high schools. We know how important that is, and that has led to our intentionality in EBSC to identify students so that we could intervene early and often if they were at risk of not graduating. But we also know high school diploma is not enough. That's not ensuring that our students are going to be successful. So we started asking ourselves questions. Were our students actually enrolling in, attending, persisting through college? Were they gaining employment, whether after they graduated from high school or when they completed college or when they left college? Were they being successful? We had lots of questions. For some of those questions, we had data to answer them. We have access to the National Clearinghouse where we can look at our college persistence rates. We have some college and career readiness data. For some of those questions, such as employment, we are still in the process of working with local businesses to see about MOUs so that we can gather those data to examine that. But really stepping back and thinking about success differently led us to revision our continuous improvement process, or for the EBSC, that's our strategic plan. So we set our #1 priority being that all students are going to develop to their maximum potential and be successful at every stage in life. So instead of saying that our ultimate goal was for our kids to graduate, we're holding ourselves accountable that not only are we going to ensure that our kids are successful when they're with us, but that we've set them up to be successful when they leave us. So at the same time, or about the same time, our state also decided that they needed to think differently about high school graduation. So in the state of Indiana, instead of simply looking at the courses students took, and in the state of Indiana, they have to have 40 credits, they said we actually need to set a different bar. So for the class of 2023, students have to complete their course requirements. They also have to learn about and demonstrate employability skills, and they also have to demonstrate post-secondary readiness. So now what students have to do to earn a diploma has been ratcheted up, and so we're thinking about how we meet that need and then how we also ensure that kids are successful once they have that diploma. And the whole goal of this new diploma in the state of Indiana is really thinking about the currency that kids have when they leave high school. What does that say to post-secondary institutions, and what does that say to employers? So we've got this great vision and our #1 priority about students being successful at every stage in life, but we need a framework to actually bring that vision to life and make sure that it's a reality. So GAIN is our framework in Evansville. It's growth in academics through innovation and neuroeducation. And so really the basis for that is taking what we've learned from the field of neuroscience to think about how we educate the whole child. So it's a framework that integrates the knowledge learned from neuroeducation, and it informs our systems and practices so that we are really attuned to the whole child, and we think about how we maximize student learning of both academics and social emotional skills. So success and whether students pass or fail high stakes tests is not really the best predictor of students' lifelong success, and that's what we want. We want kids to be successful whether they leave us and go on to pursue academics, or whether they go into college or career, whether we're looking at their role in the community with their family. We want to think about it differently, and in order to do that, we have to be attuned to the whole child. And so what we're thinking about in Evansville is how we do that and support schools as they think about kind of the broader lens and what they can do in their buildings to think about support for all students, and then how they also are attuned to individual students and can intervene for individual students to ensure that they're successful. So, we love data in Evansville, and our schools are pretty adept at looking at academic data and even, kind of behavior attendance data. But we really thought, okay, if we have this new framework that's really helping us think about success for all students, we need to think about an encompassing data set for schools that are going to help them think through whole school strategies to ensure student success. So we created what we call our school profile, and it's aligned to our GAIN framework, and it provides schools with school level data that's disaggregated by subgroups, and they have data related to academics, social emotional, and college and career readiness. And you may not remember on the previous slide, but in that little roadmap, things were color-coded. And the pages of this school report are color-coded, so that when schools see it, they know, are we talking about, and I'll flip back for you, hopefully it'll work. If they see something that's in green, they know it's related to climate and culture, whether it's positive relationships or school environments. If they see something that's in orange, they know it's related to the whole child. So we designed it so it was aligned to our GAIN framework. We met with stakeholders about what data do we want schools to be looking at. Because we know if we give them every single data point, you can drown in data. But what are the key things that they need to look at? And then how do we align it to our framework that's going to take schools as they process through the data from leading to lagging indicators so they can really think about strategies for their schools. The other thing that we added, it's really tiny on here, but for every data point that schools are looking at, they have a similar school in our corporation in their data as well as the district, so they have context for what their data says. So this year was the first year we rolled this out and schools used it in their school improvement planning process. So when their leadership teams came together, they had a different set of data to look at. We received lots of positive feedback from schools and how this enabled them to identify data points of concern, to really dig into root cause, to think about what strategies they needed to put in place, and come up with action plans. In our district, they also, our schools set goals and strategies related to both academics and social emotional learning, so those are both key components in their school improvement plans. So we not only need to support our schools at kind of the broader level as they set a course for how they're going to ensure all students are successful, but we also need to ensure that they can support individual student needs. So our elementary schools for quite some time have been asking for an early warning system for elementary, and we've had to dodge that question a little bit as we tried to figure out what that was going to look like. They wanted to know if we can identify what can we use about how we've identified students earlier, our students who are at risk, so we can intervene, and then what can we take from what we've learned about social emotional and some of these other data points on students to really think about intervening for students at the elementary level. So we decided, okay, we don't have a great data set where we can kind of create a risk score for students, so we're going to take our early warning system report, pull the algorithm out. It's not going to create a risk score, but we're going to look at the same key components that we had in an early warning report, but we're also going to add other things. So you can see across the top we've got our ABCs, but then we added a bunch of other data points that we're able to capture. So we survey our students with Panorama, so we have data related to student sense of belonging, our students' ability to self-regulate. We have Activate on our students, so we're able to capture executive functioning skills. So we put all of those together, and we've got a set of our elementary schools who are taking kind of our NTSS model and really trying intensive interventions this year. So they're taking this data that we have and really looking with this kind of GAIN lens, doing a 360 on every single kid in their building. So they're pulling off labels. Doesn't matter if the student's already been identified, they're looking at every single kid and they're looking at all of these data points. And what's been particularly powerful as they do this is really thinking about the connection between risk factors. So before, when we might have, attendance might have been red and we would be intervening with attendance, so maybe we're meeting with the family, maybe we're doing a pre-court, maybe we're looking at transportation, when really, if we look at a student's sense of belonging, that could be the reason they're not attending school, or it could be a family circumstance is the reason. So it's allowing us to see, were we actually intervening maybe in the wrong place before and we need to intervene somewhere differently with different strategies for students. So that's been really powerful at the school level. And we've thought about different people being at the table. So we have teachers, administrators, school psychologists and counselors, social emotional learning specialists. So we have different people at the table to really help us think through. And looking at this broader set of data has enabled us to make better and more informed decisions to support students. We know in Evansville that we have some students who are going to go on to post-secondary, go to college, whether it's a 2-year or 4-year. We also have a lot of students who are going to enter the workforce. So we needed to engage with our business partners in the community to think about what could we do to best position our students to be successful if they were going straight into work, or even if they were going to college and then going into work. So that's where opt-in, which is opportunities through partnership that transform and inspire. You know, it's education, we gotta have an acronym for everything. So, but that is our commitment to students, and it's how we educate students on their options. So we're really trying to help students understand what their interests are, what their strengths are, and think about career paths that might align to that. We have numerous members on our board that are in the business community in Evansville, which allows us to have a lot of information about what skills our students need to be successful and different career opportunities, and they help us think through what programming and opportunities we need to have for our kids. It's through opt-in that we created our Governor's Work Ethic Certificate in Evansville, which allows EVSC seniors to identify, develop, and demonstrate transferable skills that are in demand by local businesses or local employers. And what's fantastic about this is kids do this. They get their Governor's Work Ethic Certificate and might think, great, gold star, you have this thing. No, local employers have committed to things based on students earning that. So if you are a student who earned that, local employer, depending on which employer it is, might guarantee you an interview. They might give you a bonus vacation day if you stay employed with them for a year. They might pay for college. So we've got them to put some skin in the game and commit to things for students because of that. I have no idea. Just making it exciting for us. In addition to that, we stepped back and said, okay, in Evansville, we have long had multiple innovative opportunities for students. We have a law academy, we have a med professionals academy, we have a career and tech center. But by and large, the students who avail themselves of those programs are students who are already successful, and students are going to be successful regardless of whether we have those opportunities. They're linked to interest, they're linked to post-secondary pursuits, but we have a lot of students who could not take advantage of them because they were either credit deficient, had attendance issues, things of that nature. And we know if students don't complete post-secondary, it's a community problem. If they're not poised to be successful, that's something that we need to be thinking about in the larger community. So we said, okay, we need to think about how we're going to engage students, how we're going to help them graduate, and how we're going to ensure that they're successful. So we went down to Georgia to visit their RPM model, which is Reaching Potential Through Manufacturing. I don't know if there's anybody from Georgia in here. But it's a program where students work on their diploma requirements half the day, and they work in the field half the day. And so we went down there with actual local employers in Evansville to take a look at it. And when we came back, one of those employers, AmeriQual, decided to go down this road with us and partner with us. So this year we launched our RAMP program, which is Real World Application and Maximizing Potential, where our students are doing that. Half the day they're working on their diploma requirements, and half the day they're working on the line at AmeriQual, earning money. And we've aligned the curriculum for that program so that our kids can graduate via grad pathway. So they will meet all 3 of those requirements for the state. And it's been really powerful. But what ties it back in is we use our early warning system reports to recruit students and to identify students because we take the most at-risk students into our RAMP program. So the risk score, it's sort of a flip. We're looking at who are our most at-risk kids that are interested, that would want to do this, that we can recruit, that we can get interested, and they're the ones who participate in this program. So, wrapping it up, we've come a long way in Evansville since we developed our early warning systems. We still have a long road ahead of us. There's a lot that we still need to do to ensure that our students are going to be successful. So, a couple of things that are on our mind as we think about where we're going. We're continuing to think about our post-secondary indicators. How can we be continuing to track data about our students when they leave us to ensure that they're successful, and then to modify our programming. We're committed to continuous improvement, so we're going to think about the initiatives such as opt-in and RAMP and evaluate those to see, are they effective? Are there pieces in there that we can scale? Are there things that we need to change? We every year come back to the interventions that we implement for students to see have they been effective, have they had the impact that we hope they would for students, and reevaluate. So we're committed to continuing to do that. And then the other is we know the early morning system isn't an end to itself, but it is a tool that our schools are really leveraging. And as Francis talked about, we continue to get feedback from schools. Just last week or the week before, we had schools who wanted us to create one-pagers that you could click on, that they could print off for parents for conversations. We know we have our version of the early warning system for elementary, so continuing to think about how we leverage that tool and build beyond that. So excited to talk about it and turn it over to Carla.
Thank you.